So thank you so much for coming and joining us today. So as you know, and I think a lot of you have been here before, so we are IMAGINEi5, and we're a design house that is helping us put together social impact designs for to help others in the COVID pandemic and more. So before we jump into the topics for today, I just want to make sure that you can find us in at IMAGINEi5 channel in the COVID Accelerator. And if you have any other questions regarding anything that comes to mind, you can also send us a message through imaginei5.com/contact. And then also you can maybe share your LinkedIn through the chat and start like the chat conversations early on so that you can grab that information from the chat itself. So for today, we have three of our awesome people presenting about their projects. They're going to be telling us a little bit about what the problem that they have, what the solution that they are solving for, and share with us a little bit of what we can help, like where do you need help at this point. So each of you will have about 5 minutes, including questions. And you can, so for the participants, if you can just ask questions in the chat as well, and we can connect you to the right people as we go along, and then we can ask them in the public for everyone. So to start, I know I saw Kellyanne Kelso. So you're gonna be sharing with us the short stories, pause and process for community resilience.
Yeah, thank you, Adriana, and I will start a timer so I stay on time. And thanks also, Sarah, for working with me on the agenda. I was supposed to go last week, and then I did that super annoying thing where you pull out last second. So I'm really grateful for the opportunity to still go ahead and share. So I'm going to keep this primarily verbal, but I will share all of the associated links. And fortunately, this project is now live and accessible. I'll tell you a bit about the inspiration. It basically comes from watching this amazing community of people spring up, you know, courtesy of Tito and Ari, and then also, you know, IMAGINEi5. But noticing that we were primarily focusing on these kind of real-time immediate needs from people who were losing their jobs or losing access to their supply chains, and trying to address that from a more, not technological level, but just to meet that immediate need. And I thought, you know, looking around, it looks like this situation is kind of irrevocable. It's going to have it's already had a life-changing impact on enough people that in a way it has a life-changing impact on all of us, whether or not, you know, we've felt the worst impacts of that. So my idea was like a super ultra low tech, old school, basically a blog where I connect with individuals who have been impacted by this situation, and they come as individuals, not as representatives of groups. But particularly, I was interested to hear the stories of people who have been, you know, negatively impacted by this, and to hear that kind of warts and all, with the goal that, or the assumption that, you know, hearing the stories about how you might be coping or some weird thing that you're experiencing, and just, you know, reading that on the other side and realizing you were doing that too and you weren't alone in that, is inherently therapeutic. And it just helps to advance us from this kind of shock and reaction mode to a more like moving towards acceptance, and just beginning to go through this process of grieving something and integrating it into our new shared reality. So that's really the inspiration for it. If I were to think, like, I really love the blog Brain Pickings, I really love the blog Humans of New York, so some kind of backbone of that. And the amazing thing is I've already had the opportunity to interview one person and publish his story, and that's actually Tito, who's like the most radically open person I know, and he was like super happy, like, to say, yeah, sure, whatever, let's go for it. And so we had an interview this past Monday, transcribed it and uploaded it, so I will go ahead and share that in the chat. The website itself is, like, I would call it prototype. I still need to go through, my boyfriend and I were looking at the mobile version last night, like, oh, there's some work to do here. But the you know, the content is there, and it's really just there to give you a feel for what this looks like. My ask from this team is really right now around content. So basically, are you interested to share your story? Or do you know someone who you think might be interested to share their story? And can you get in touch with me about that? I'm really defaulting towards just building some content now before and hearing some stories and just seeing how this is going before I kind of go into optimizing for how's the best way to share this, how's the best way to assess what impact it's having, like what's my social media game. I'm not really worried about that right now. I'm just focused on building content. But also actually one thing in particular that I wanted to share in case anybody has any translation skills, like can be a translator. So for example, Spanish to English or other like languages. I don't want to make this an English speakers only forum, especially for folks that native language, it's just going to be easier for them to tell their real story in and share that with the group. So let's see if I'm leaving anything that I wanted to touch on. The other idea that I had was about not just having interviews published, but also interspersing that with some research on grief, some research on processing, some research on resilience. I have a couple people that I know about that focus on this, but there's plenty more, I hope, and I just don't know their names. So if you study that in college or you work in that in real life, or you know someone who does, who you could refer me to, that would also be very helpful. I'll pause there and ask if there's any questions.
Thank you so much, Kellyanne. So does anyone have any questions?
I have a question for you, Kelly.
Yeah.
Kellyanne. What kind of stories are you looking for? Or is it just is it about our story from, what we're experiencing right now during COVID? Or is it, are you going to ask specific questions to guide us through our story? Kind of, can you give me a little information on that?
Sorry. Yeah. So your question was around what specific storyteller am I looking for?
Yeah, or stories in general. Like, for example, are you going to provide questions so that we can figure out what our story is? Or do you think that, or is it going to be like that we just send you a story and from there we can like develop it together? I guess, what kind of stories are you looking for exactly?
Got it. So three ways to answer that question. One is I personally feel that hearing directly from folks who have lost their job or have been furloughed or are a gig worker working without PPE or are a delivery personnel, for example, like those people that are significantly negatively impacted, I don't feel like I've been hearing their stories in the media or in social media in a way that's not like clearly heavily filtered. So I'm really interested to hear that personally, but I don't want that to come across as exclusionary, like that's the only story that's worth hearing, and I don't want to fetishize that at all. But that was my original, like, I want to hear about how this is happening for folks. The other way to answer that question, I do have a Google Doc that I'm very happy to share with like sample questions that I would ask. I asked Tito a subset of them, for example. There's like 100 of them on there, and they're just idea generators, but really it's an organic conversation. And I think something coming out of the interview with Tito was that when I keep saying story over and over again, really our stories anchor in moments. So I would really ask you, like, what's a moment you remember when this first hit you? What's a moment you remember that was like a weird moment of realization for you? Because usually that's where people's like real visceral experiences of processing something kind of anchors. So that's probably where I'd drive the conversation from. Does that help?
Yeah. Thank you.
Sweet.
I have another question, Kelly. It's really cool you're doing this. And I just thought I was talking to a friend yesterday whose boyfriend works as a radiology tech, and he's working with a lot of COVID patients, doesn't have people.
Yeah.
And he was posting about it, his experiences on Facebook, and then his employer told him that if you don't take this down, you'll be fired. So I was thinking, like, would you be open to anonymous stories as well? Like maybe give people a voice if they can't post about this stuff on their own?
Yeah, no, thank you so much. Absolutely. That is part of the kind of founding core thesis here is like, I'm not here to jeopardize your employability at all. So if you want to go first name only, that's fine. No photos, that's fine. Completely anonymous, also fine. As long as I see and talk to you, I know you're a real person, I'm going to preserve that confidentiality. And also, I wouldn't publish anything without your seeing exactly what would be written and making sure you we're agreed about it. Yeah, so absolutely, anonymous is completely fine.
Awesome.
So you're seeing how
Let him know about your blog then.
Yay, thank you.
Thank you so much.
I want to be cognizant of time, so maybe just throw any other questions you have in the chat and we'll move on to the next person.
Thank you, Kelly.
And it's what?
Really appreciate it. Okay, so Jessica Greenwald is going to be talking to us about her work in Contribute To. So just remember, as a recap, keep asking questions in the chat and we can catch them. We're going to take about 2 questions per person, so in the sake of time. So Jessica, do you have anything to share from your computer? Or
yeah, actually, so I'm just going to explain it verbally and then I'll hop on and share a screen with an example of a collection. What we're doing, or what I've been doing those past few weeks, is working with a fintech company to build, financial technology company, to build a tool to help people collect and distribute funds to it. Obviously, in the situation, a lot of people want to use it for people impacted by coronavirus. So we're helping organizations create what are called collections of, they can be anything. They can be collections of people within their organization. They can be collections of causes that they want to support. And these collections, people who love and support those organizations, those causes, those individuals, can go on there, contribute amounts, even small amounts, just to show like a token of appreciation, or that they appreciate their existence, that they acknowledge their existence and want them to continue being around. And we've had a lot of interest from patrons who have already committed to matching the contributions made on the platform. So we have commitments from patrons in the arts to match $1 million of contributions on the platform, and a few follow-ons for another $500,000 there. So right now, what I'm looking to do is find organizations that we can put these collections together for whatever, if it's causes or if it's members of their organization, so that they can help their members or their causes start collecting funds. And we might be able to even find them a great patron who wants to match those contributions being made within their collection. And so I'm just going to go ahead and share my screen here. It's host has disabled attendee screen sharing.
Okay, you should be able to share now.
Yeah, let's try again. So what I'll be sharing with you is this is a demo of what a collection could look like. In this example, it is, because it's closest to the one that we're going to be launching soon. It's an example of a art collection, like an art fund that supports artists. And so Center of the Art Foundation, they create a collection of individuals within this collection that they want to support, right? So these are individual artists. And each of these artists can basically write a little blurb about themselves. This is endorsement, means like the people within the organization who are curating this collection. So these are usually, in the case of the art collection we're spinning up and launching at the beginning of next month, we have some pretty big names in the art world. So having that social proof, if you will, lends credibility to the individual being featured in the collection. So each artist can have their own card, and then people who want to contribute to that artist, who appreciate their work, just want to support them, can go in here and then click to support or learn about them from video. Like, the artists have a lot of control over what they want to put on here. And they don't have to be artists. They could be farmers. They could be people who've lost their jobs from coronavirus. It's female founders is another category that I'm working on spinning up right now, or people in education. It's really just what we're looking for are organizations that want a collection, and we'll help them set it up and handle payment processing and all that. The idea here is just to have a useful tool that helps people get funds right now when they need it. And the really cool thing about this is we've set it up so that you don't have to be a registered nonprofit, or and you can be an individual to receive contributions. You're not excluded from that. So yeah, so that's what's going on there. Any questions?
One question that I have is, what do you need from this team?
Well, I would really, really, really love some help with user testing. I'm just going to show you an example of the show your support with a contribution situation here, where these are all customizable. So if you start up a collection, you get to choose what minimum amounts you want to put in there. Then of course there's custom. And we're finding that most people just want to contribute a lot more. But yeah, so what I would love help with from the group is user testing. So, you know, been trying to build this, design and code it really quickly, and also work with partners to get them to have manage these collections so that they're essentially doing quality control, right? Like if we connect with an organization and they invite their members, then it's not, you know, us going into verticals that we don't know, and letting anyone up on the platform. And because I'm essentially doing all these things really quickly, I haven't had the opportunity to do proper user testing, which usually takes quite a bit of time. But I would love if there's anyone in the group who would just be happy to sit down with me for like a 10-minute video call so I can see how they walk through the site, like, or hear their perceptions of it, how it makes them feel, any of that, any feedback at all on a one-on-one level would be awesome.
Okay.
Hi there. Are you hearing me?
Yeah.
Actually, we're building a similar like platform, like for artists there in the Philippines. Like, and it would be good to, you know, talk to you about this. Like you're building something there and we're having the similar thing, like to provide like opportunities for the people who, you know, they are who are, you know, affected because of this like coronavirus pandemic. And yeah, I think let's talk later about this. Like, yeah.
Definitely, because artists are, you know, a lot of artists were already struggling prior to this, so they're one of the hardest hit by the coronavirus, which is actually why a lot of patrons have reached out to us specifically wanting to support that vertical.
And by the way, I'm an artist. I'm a filmmaker in profession, but now I'm doing some techie stuff because of this. I'm, you know, operating the other side of me.
Hi, Endavine.
Okay, so I'm seeing some stuff come through here in the chat. If you just go ahead and put your email address in, if you're interested in doing user testing, I'll go ahead and email you.
Oh, wrong one.
Perfect.
Okay.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jesse.
Thank you.
I'm gonna send my artist email. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Okay. So yeah, keep putting your emails in the chat, and that way we can pass those along to Jessica for her to connect.
Thank you.
Okay, so we're gonna transition now into Miguel Morin. So he has 2 projects that he's working on. So support local tourism through covouchers20.org and tech emotional intelligence for children over a summer in partial lockdown. So that's possibly.org. So Miguel, are you there?
I am here. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Great. Can you enable my screen sharing, please?
Yes. So let's see.
Oh, I am the co-host now. Hi, yes. So as Adriana mentioned, I'm working on 2 projects at the moment. The one on local tourism is going well, and I don't really need help or an ask, so I'm going to focus on the other one. About me, my name is Miguel Morin. That's me over there. I have a bachelor's in computer science and a PhD in economics, and I'm passionate about early childhood education, software development, and social impact. And my deep motivation is leaving a better world for tiny, tiny children between 3 and 7. So the problem that I saw is that now, and probably over the summer as well, parents are working from home and are overwhelmed. It will probably extend over the summer, even if countries exit lockdown, because most companies have asked their employees to take their holidays during the pandemic. So parents will probably be working from home over the summer. And children are stranded at home with lockdown. And in general, children don't really learn about emotions, how to recognize them, and how to express their needs. So the solution is to launch the 2020 Children's Emotion Olympiads. For the first time in history, the Olympic Games were postponed rather than canceled, the first time that they don't happen in peacetime. And we are producing a series of short 3-minute videos like Sesame Street with this little puppet for 3 to 7-year-olds, and also developing an app to learn about emotions for 8 to 12-year-olds. And the vision is that this could be really a time when the world comes together to teach children about emotions, that every child can be an emotional athlete and that they can be part of their country's team, and any country and any person can win gold, unlike the Olympics. We have secured the right to use a puppet. Some puppets are copyrighted, but we're using this one, which we got the permission. We have a partnership with the emotion course from feelingmagnets.com. We hired a professional filmmaker and an art therapist to make the videos, and we are discussing educational app developers and contacts with the University of Cambridge, because parents are really overwhelmed with the amount of information and stuff that's out there. And I've worked in early childhood education. So if we have an endorsement by the University of Cambridge, it could really make a difference. Let me show you the initial video. And I will put it on.
Or set the magic spell on the waves. We can go for a swim and be pushed around by the waves. Or we can go and swim in the water and ride the waves. Yes, we can surf them!
So this is an analogy that emotions are like waves. They come and go all the time, which some children don't know because they think that if they feel sad at one point, they're going to feel sad forever. And this is an analogy, and I put the puppet on a surfboard, which I think sounds fun. So we have 5 asks in here, so we can work on all of these. I'm a jack of all trades. If anyone wants to help with these, it could really increase the impact and the reach. Ideally, we'd get an endorsement from the International Olympic Committee that this is the Olympics of the 2020 Olympics are about children and emotional intelligence. We are thinking of launching a grassroots audience and movement. We don't have marketing budgets to spend on Facebook ads. We are hoping that the product is its own marketing. We're hoping to raise funds for long shot and short deadline projects, about 40K, especially to pay the app developers. If anyone works or knows partnerships from university departments in education or neuroscience to make sure that this is primarily educational, that it doesn't addict children. And if anyone has worked in educational app development, then my email is there, puzzly@kentab.net, and the website is puzzly.org. And the first video is at that website or on Vimeo here. And I'll put these in the chat.
Awesome. Okay. So does anyone have any questions for Miguel?
Not exactly, but I will email you. I have a friend who's a behavior therapist and she has some other background, but probably relevant.
Let me answer one question. What date are targeting for launch? July 1st, the beginning of summer holidays. And if we're running really tight, the latest is 24 July, the original date of the Olympics.
Nice. Okay, so thank you so much for giving us such a great catch up in all of your work, amazing work that the 3 of you are doing. So let's make this community help you out, because yeah, we're ready to contribute, and we're ready and here to help each other.
Oh, never mind. Sorry.
Okay, so now we're gonna be sharing a little bit about an opportunity that we have coming up for some people that are putting together the Small Business Challenge, School Challenge. So Kevin is gonna share with us a little bit about what is coming up. So Kevin, are you on the line?
Hey Adriana. Yeah, thanks for that introduction. So I'll keep it fairly short. Essentially what this is, it's gonna be a 48-hour hackathon. And we're gonna have about, I think it's over 300, close to 350 MBAs from like 14 different schools. And what they're gonna do is they're gonna be grouped into teams of 3 to 4, and then they'll be assigned a small business and work on a business plan, and just kind of help consult for that business. And so, I think what we would ask from you guys, or the opportunity here, would either be to A, enroll your small business, or B, if you have experience running a small business, or you have experience consulting or anything, you guys can apply to be a mentor as well. I know it's very brief, but it boils down to being a hackathon with MBA students from across the nation, and then you guys can apply with your small business, or apply to be a mentor. I'm happy to dump my email in chat if you guys have questions, and I will make sure to get you these slides if you guys want to sign up.
We'll add the slides onto the chat.
Yes. Thanks.
Okay. Is there a link to the site where you can sign up?
Yeah, I'd like to share that.
I will.
Enroll your small business and be a mentor are clickable. So they'll link you to fill it out.
Yeah, it's just a Google form that you can fill out. Yeah. And I'll add my email if you guys have any questions or want to get in contact.
Thank you so much, Kevin. So it is coming up on 5/14 to 5/16. So sign up, and the sign up ends, I believe it is today. So
yes,
make sure that you get your business in as soon as possible.
I glossed over the most important part. Yes, so the hackathon will actually be next week from Thursday to Saturday. So as a small business, you'll be spending a couple hours on Thursday, and then a few hours Saturday night for the competition. Mentors, it's much less of a commitment. It's only an hour and a half. So.
Yeah, and I believe there are going to be 4 workshops, and we're going to be doing one of those. So just stay tuned.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Kevin. So I'm going to pass it along to Sarah, to lead us to building our community session for today.
Awesome. Thank you. Actually, do you mind going to the next slide for me?
Yeah.
All right. So many of you all are, some of you all are experts already in prototyping, and some of you are new to prototyping. So we thought we would give you a high level kind of overview of prototyping and how to go through it. And we're also going to be holding an event outside of this Coffee and COVID for teams to develop their prototypes. So we'll present more about that at the end of this session. So I always really like to think about prototyping as testing out a hypothesis. So what you're trying to get out of this prototype is some sort of feedback and information that you're either heading in the right direction, or that you need to pivot and try something different, or reevaluate your hypotheses. And so each type of whatever you're looking for, whatever type of like question that you have, you're going to need a different type of prototype. Of course, makes sense. So the first step here is so these are just recommended steps just to help guide people along, but you don't need to follow this to the T. I'm just going to take you through. I'm an engineer in the medical device industry, so I'm going to take you through perhaps what I would do throughout these processes. So the first step would be writing down the product story. So as a patient, so as if I'm the user, so as a patient, I want to be comfortable with the device that I wear so I can stay inconspicuous, but also take care of my health. So I'm going to write down an assumption on this. Maybe perhaps I'm building up a wearable product. So when my users wear my device, I expect them to be able to wear the device all day to maintain their health. So perhaps a part of that would be a weight. Like let's just say that I expect my product between these and like let's just say 2 pounds to 5 pounds. It can be worn all day for a range of a variety of users. So that would be an example of my hypothesis. So the third step would be starting with a low fidelity prototype. So you can draw it on paper, you can use a whiteboard, a cardboard, you want to keep it simple. So for me, is I would just grab something that I have around the house, which are some washers or kind of anything that a little bit of weight to it that as a known weight. And I would just ask like somebody that I know to wear it and just like give me feedback on that. That would be like a low fidelity for this type of like prototype for weight. I would get feedback, I would ask them questions, that would be the fourth step. And then finally off of that, I would reevaluate whether maybe I'm providing a product that's too large, too high of weight, or too low of weight, or actually low is great, too high of a weight. And I would iterate off of that. And I would do it again for any kind of hypothesis that I have. So maybe like the comfort, another hypothesis would be around sharp edges. And so I would go ahead, I would do another low fidelity product. So I would continuously iterate through this. It's a constant cycle. But the way I like to think about it is that you want to figure out, you want to identify what is your hypothesis and the simplest prototype to answer that question. All right, does anybody have any questions? Nope. All right. Yeah, so now what we're gonna do is we're gonna talk more about prototyping in the middle of this section. But for now, we're gonna help you guys go through and ask some questions, and I'm gonna let Clarice lead this part on.
Hi everyone, we'd like to invite you to share your work with us. And we will have 2 breakout rooms. For each session, there are 10 minutes. We have prototyping related questions you will share with 2 other members in your breakout room session. The questions for breakout session 1 is first, what problem are you working to solve? And second, what stage is your project company in now? Are you in ideation, emphasizing with your community, prototyping, marketing, developing a business model, or raising funding?
Just to reiterate that, we just want you guys to answer those 2 questions, which are, where are you at right now with your prototype, and what are with your project, and what are you trying to solve? So that's how we're going to break out, and we're going to come back together and have another discussion. All right, is everybody back? 22. Okay. So something that we want to highlight, what are some prototyping tools? So I know that a lot of times everybody turns to tech. We don't need tech tools to prototype, like very, very important. Like in fact, in the beginning, they're probably going to get in your way. Even like a pen and paper and starting to sketch something is a great way to get to prototyping. Using cardboard is another one. If you're actually physically building something, even Google Forms, perhaps like, for example, we had one person that is working on a solution, is working on hiring during like remote hiring process, like utilizing, like calling people and talking about and asking those specific questions that she would be asking during the hiring process, seeing the engagement, seeing what the benefits, what the kind of the responses are off of that, or even using Google Forms as another way to do like a really quick assessment. There's so many types of like low fidelity tools. I just really want to emphasize you don't need tech. And a lot of times we jump right to the coding, but that's way later. That's once you actually evaluate your hypothesis and see if that's something that people truly need. So some other tools that you can use for medium fidelity, even painting something like to look like the aesthetic would be a good way to get some medium, get some feedback on that. Basic physical items around the home, like for example, like I'd mentioned the washers, like the washers are the small weights. And then some wireframing tools, you can use Balsamic or Miro. Those are some very simple tools, among other things. So you can see here, by the way, if you are doing a physical product, there are options for either free trials or it could be free for students or small businesses if you make under a certain amount. So do look into that. They're usually, it's for example, 360 Fusion, which is a CAD, like computer automated design software, is free for students and small businesses that make under a certain amount. And then some high fidelity tools, Proto.io for wireframing, getting more precise 3D prints. At this point, like this is way down the line, and I'm just mentioning them so you can look at this into the future. But I would say like perhaps majority of us are not, majority of the teams are probably not at high fidelity yet. But here are some examples to look at. So again, just I want to emphasize tech tools are not needed to just start prototyping. Here, I want to actually turn this over. We wanted to give a really basic example of like prototyping for a washing machine, which is like everybody has a washing machine in the US, like you know what it's, you know like how to use it, you've kind of had some like interactions. So I'm going to turn this over to Nico, who actually did this project a while back, and he can take you guys through like how you would start. So Nico, go for it.
Yeah, thank you. Let me know if you can't hear me. So let's just get started. Yeah, thanks for having me. My name is Nico, and I'm a PhD student at Berkeley and the ME department, mechanical engineering department, and I'm doing computational manufacturing. But as Sarah said, in my past life, I actually was a mechanical engineer at GE Appliances, and we designed laundry products in general. So, like Sarah said, I'm going to take you through what a design process kind of looked like with respect to prototyping. And actually, prototyping was my favorite part of my job back in the day when I used to do this type of work. Cool. So let's start with prototyping, and I like to call it try-storming, where you're really just like coming up with really crazy ideas and just trying to see if they actually work. So that's where try-storming kind of came out from. So prototyping, it's a really powerful. It lets you test designs iteratively, and it can give you a lot of incremental information about your future product design. So the degree of complexity of each prototype is super important because you're really trying to solve an optimization problem, which means how do you get the most information out of my prototype with the least amount of resources like time, material, budget, etc. So planning those out at the get-go is very important for the success of your design. So as an engineer at GE, I would be part of a team that was designing these washers and dryers. And my subsystem was the door and the hinge and the latch. And it sounds super easy, but let's see if it was easy. So after competitive analysis came through from the marketing and the product team, as engineers, we, instead of starting out with creating ideas, we just look at the competition and we would just try out those products and just see what would work for us, and we just gather that intel that way. Once that's done, that's maybe for like a whole month or two, we would switch over to creating ideas with sketches. So we would use PowerPoint, paper and pen, dry erase markers, Post-its as our first prototype. So we were actually we would gather other engineers, other team members, and each person would come up with 5 ideas that were off the wall silently, and then we would just cluster them and see which idea thought would be the best by voting. And with that, we were able to bounce off early ideas with others and give a reality check on the idea you might have had before you did this kind of sketch or activity. So it's a great way to also store away some great ideas for the future, right? Maybe on a different iteration. Once that's done and you kind of know what kind of designs that you want to test out more concretely, we just did a lot of arts and crafts, but with a purpose. So we would do a lot of cardboard and duct tape. And this is GE, this is a corporation, but we're sitting there cutting up cardboard and using duct tape and putting things together, markers, things like that to make it look like a washing machine. So we would make a physical representation of the design, of whatever crazy design we wanted to try out. And for example, I would just make a cutout of a round door of a front load washing machine, and I would just attach it to one side and make it swing. And I would see whether I could get the clothes out of the washing machine. This is just with a cardboard cutout. And I kind of felt like a cat, but that's kind of what he had to do to get a feel for what your product is going to look like in the future. You don't want any surprises later. Once all these crazy arts and crafts are done and people are interested about a few, you can start looking at making out of more rigid materials like plywood. These prototypes are great because you can get a feel for the feel of the product. Now they have some weight, you can kick it around, you can swing the door loudly. You might leave the door open, you might bump into it. So, you know, what happens when you bump into the door? So this rigidity gave us information about the feel of the product, okay? And also we were able to see how do these different parts can fit together and create some envelopes for the different parts and in the assembly, which was a super important thing for when we moved to a CAD design. So here's when we moved to SolidWorks or Pro-E or any other CAD software. We would jump in there and make a 3D model of whatever we thought the part should look like. And then we just started 3D printing the parts. We, as a whole engineering team, we actually ended up pretty much 3D printing an entire washing machine. And we would test out different ideas, switch out for different part assemblies or geometries and see what would fit out. So it's really good to have modularity in your designs to see, just to drop in and replace different parts and see how each would affect your final product. So once those 3D printed parts have been made, and we've done a lot of functional tests with focus groups, with product users and things like that, we had an idea of a better idea how our design should look like. So this is the finish of the product. We would then give it some aesthetics, paint it, send it out to an artist, just to get a feel for how the product will look like once it was out in the production space. So this is where the product teams and the marketing teams would make final decisions on what the aesthetics might be. And at this stage, you're actually fooling people that it was not a real washing machine, but it wasn't really. So we got a lot of traction from that, which was great. And then finally, we work with all our part suppliers to make us cheap parts. So low quality tooling. And then we make hundreds of these prototypes, and then we just pretty much beat them up, put them up for destructive tests. We sent it out for finish tests. So we put a lot of crazy chemicals on them, things like that. So we were able to actually see the unit that we were going to sell, feel it, and get a feel for what the fit of this unit will be in the home. So again, you can see that all of these different types of prototypes have, you know, varying degrees of fidelity and details, but they all represent different questions or hypotheses that you're trying to solve, which is very important. Do not skip any of these steps. Otherwise, you're going to find out things too late. Okay, so just let me know if you have any questions in the chat. I'm happy to respond.
Thank you, Nico.
Yeah, so we're running out of time, so we're skipping the second breakout room session. As Sarah mentioned, we have different tools for prototyping, and if you are a member of COVID Accelerator, you have free access to Miro, and we encourage you to take advantage of that. There's a nice tool in Miro called wireframing. Please try that out. It's very useful tool, and let us know how you think about this. Yeah, but that's only one of the two. Yeah. So for next steps, we will have coffee and COVID with IMAGINEi5 every Friday. Today we start the discussion of prototyping, and on May the 30th, we will have a special session, MVP workshop, and we encourage you to sign up with your fantastic team members. And if you don't have a team yet, please take advantage of our every Friday session, and we have a lot of talented entrepreneurs, engineers, and scientists here, please team up and or encourage you to attend our MVP workshop. We accept individual applicants as well, attendants as well, and we will try to pair you up with other attendants. But in order to get the best result from the workshop, we encourage you to team up first and have some discussion before the workshop. And in July, we will have pitches for funding events. You will know more information later. Thank you. Thanks for our sponsor, COVID Accelerator, that Determined Berkeley has. And thank you for joining us for the coffee chat event today.
Thank you so much.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.
Thank you. See you next week.
Yeah, see you next week. Reach out to us if you guys need anything or want to present. We'd be happy to have you guys.